Hello my friends, and today I want to talk to you about my new treasure hunting steed right here. Okay, this is an honest and unbiased review. I bought this bike with my own money. Cost about £899, which some people may feel is expensive, but there's a lot of factors and a lot of points here to take into account. And probably the word investment should be used here as well, I feel. Okay, so I'm going to review this as honest as possible. Just a quick backstory. I don't want to bore you too much, but a quick backstory as to why I've gone and got this bike. One thing that the coronavirus outbreak has taught me is that I don't need my car as much as I felt that I needed my car. I can go treasure hunting and adventuring and get down holes with my bike. I don't need my car, and I feel a bit like a hypocrite. I felt like a hypocrite. I've been wanting an e-bike for the last 5 years, but they've always been a bit too expensive for me, and I kind of figured that eventually they'll start upgrading the batteries and upgrading things, but they haven't really. They've pretty much stayed the same over the past 5 years. The lower tier ones, like the Carrera Vengeance that I've got here, which is one of the lowest, one of the cheapest ones you can buy. What did it for me is I did that video and I was explaining that it's the first time I went out metal detecting, and that the sky seemed bluer, the air is fresher, the grass and the trees seemed greener, there's no cars on the roads, there's less pollution. And what kind of pushed me over the edge was that I had driven to that permission to do that video, and I thought that's a bit hypocritical. You drove there to do that. In that instance, I'd have to drive to that permission because it's about 30 miles away, but there's plenty of permissions that I could access via this bike, a good tool bag, metal detector in the back, small shovel in the back, pointer, bit of food, drink, done, dusted. So that's why I bit the bullet, and you know, I went for it. If I want to kind of say that I've enjoyed, my eyes are open whilst coronavirus has happened, to the environment. I'm not I might have long hair, but I'm not a hippie. I think that I like the planet. It served me well as a human so far. Thank you, planet. You know, and I have seen a change in this time, a massive change in everything. So I bit the bullet, be the change you want to see in the world and all that, and I've done it. This is my review. There's some bad points, there's some good points. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, let's go from the front to the back and look at everything individually, shall we? So we have disc brakes, which are perfectly fine. The tyres are nice and girthy, big, thick tyres. They could be bigger and thicker, but they seem a good enough quality. There's 8 gears, and there's a lot of points I want to talk about concerning those gears, but 8 gears is sufficient enough for me personally. The bike weighs a ton. It is extremely heavy. The battery itself down there feels like gold bullion. The actual control panel is just a chunk of plastic with an LEDs on it, and that's going to tell you you've got 3 options. You've got high, I think, what's the, is it? Okay, yeah, so you've got high, standard and eco. Straight riding in high apparently will get you about 20 miles. Standard will get you about 40 miles, and apparently eco will take you 60 miles. But it's a perfectly good bike, even with that weight, without engaging the motor. The bike locks out at 15.5 miles per hour, which doesn't quite feel, you just feel like you're just getting there. In some instances it feels like you're really shooting along, in some instances it feels quite cumbersome and quite slow, and you feel like, oh, just give us another 5 miles an hour on top, you know. But then you're into the argument of, okay, if I have another 5 miles per hour on top, then I'm basically then I want another 5, and you're looking, I might as well just get a moped, and it's kind of missing the point. There's bikes out there like the Super 73, which only has 1 gear, and you push and it's a throttle and you move along, and it's all very nice and dandy. But there has to be a balance. There's a game that has to be played here, and that balance is you still want exercise. You still want a bike which is going to give you exercise and get you relatively fit, at the same time of it being a pleasurable experience and not being too hard and not being too uncomfortable. And I think that this is it. I wouldn't want a bike where I just put a throttle. I might as well get a moped. I might as well just be driving like whatever, you know. This is that 15.5 miles an hour, I think, is just enough. It's just enough. You do feel like sometimes you want it to go faster, but you then realise that you need to be the person, you need to be the one that's putting that little bit more effort in, and you still get your fitness. So I'm all right with that. The pedals are pretty cheap, just standard pedals. The gear system is fine. It's only got a front suspension, okay, and the front suspension is a good suspension. There's no suspension on the back, which is tedious. It's quite annoying that there's no suspension on the back. The battery itself, I don't know how long it takes to charge. It seems that people complain that these budget bikes, they're hello mate, how you doing? People complain that the budget bikes, the battery doesn't last long enough, but it's been fine for me so far. You know, it's been fine. And you just charge that. There's a port that comes, you click that in and you charge it. You access the battery via a key that you get, which is only accessible via, you can only access that battery via your own key. If you haven't ridden an e-bike before, that could be quite frustrating in the first instance, because you've got to get used to taking the battery off and but you do get used to it. It's just one of those technological things where you just got to dip your toe in and just, you know, push yourself and move forward with it. The seat was horrific. That's another seat from my old bike that I put on there. I've never had swollen buttocks in my life. I took this out for 2 trips and I did about 30 to 40 miles, and it was just absolutely terrible. It was so uncomfortable, and I mean really, really uncomfortable. I let these guys go by. Hello. So some walkers and e-bikers went past. So yeah, my buttocks were swollen and I felt like an orangutan, and it was very uncomfortable. And if you're a kind of like white, middle-aged man, the Beyonce look is not a comfortable one. So I put this seat on from my old bike, which is better. This rack here, I got this on Amazon for reasonably cheap, and then I also got this bag on top from Amazon, which is also reasonably cheap. I'll put a link to both of them below, just in case you're interested in that in any way. So although this doesn't come with the bike, I'll talk about it. The bag itself, it's got a lot of room in it. At the moment it's got my trail cam for some work I'm doing for a client, slime for punctures, and just a bog standard puncture repair kit. But there's plenty of room for beer in there. The motor itself at the back is a big old chunk of, just a big old chunk, you know. And as it slightly concerns me, this does. You know, I'm pretty good with bikes. I'm a fully qualified, believe it or not, I'm a fully qualified cycling instructor from my time when I was a youth worker. And I know about how to fix bikes, but we're moving into a technological place now, whereas I look at that thing and go, I don't even know where to start if that goes wrong, which is kind of a worry, and it might be a bit of a worry for some people. Let's quickly talk about hills. It's difficult to talk about hills because everybody has different hills and everybody's at different fitness rates, right? So I've read reviews of this and people go, it sails up hills. Yeah, it sails up hills for me if I'm crying and biting on something just to get me up. It's not brilliant on hills. It's a 250 watt motor. Now, what is a hill? That's the problem, isn't it? I live in the southeast coast of England and my hills are cliffs. So I have 300 foot from my town. If I want to get out of my town, I have to go up a hill of some sort, which is going to be 300 foot. The White Cliffs of Dover, 300 foot. To get out and up, you've got to go up, right? That's the problem. So my hills can be quite severe around here. But saying that, your typical hill, like, hey, look, let's look at this one here. Let's just turn you guys round. It will eat that hill. Actually, the best way of doing it is giving you an example. So, we're in the high gear. This is flashing on the screen, but it's not because it's the LEDs. Going high gear, you can see the hill. If I start pedaling, I'm gonna get a little kick. You can hear the motor engaging. Okay, we're doing 6 miles an hour, right? Now if I put a little bit more effort in, she puts a little bit more effort in, and we're shooting up the hill quite easily, quite nicely. I'm not really pedaling that much because I'm in quite a high gear. Let's go to a lower gear. Watch. Actually, I've got a bit of a steeper bit coming up here. Okay, pedaling some more. She's gonna give me more. It's as simple as that. As you can see, we're quite easily bombing up this hill, which isn't a super steep hill, but it is. Actually, it is quite steep. And we continue and we continue. There you go, just a quick example. That hill is not a problem, all right? That hill is easy. Big steep hills like this, I would say a gradient of that, it won't. It's a pedal assisted bike. You have to put in the power, okay? You have to put in, and then it's going to return that. So you pedal, 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 and the more you pedal and the more oomph you put in, the more it gives you back. If you can't pedal up a hill, which is like that, then she's not going to give you anything back. It's not a free ride, and it's certainly the case with this bike. But any typical hills which are of a gradient of about that, I would say, are it is fine, okay? But what I'm finding is people, the argument is that, oh, no, you're not going to get as much exercise on an e-bike. What I'm finding is that I'm probably exercising more in some instances because I'm using it more, number one. I'm on it all the time. I go everywhere, so I'm cycling, and it's my pedal, my muscles are building quicker, and I seem to be wanting to push myself because you can feel that it wants to give you something back, so you're kind of like, oh, I'll put some more in then. Whereas on a typical bike which isn't motor assisted, you'll find that you'll just get off and walk and push it. You know, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I just want to enjoy my day. I'm not doing this as a sport. I like to cycle because I like to go out to places and enjoy environments, and I like to just relax and chill and get a bit of exercise. I'm not one of those people that's going to push themselves and, you know, do themselves in. So this is perfect. I think that's hay fever. So they are all of the bad points, and there's quite a lot of them. Thankfully, the few good points are enough for me to recommend this bike, and I'll tell you why. It's a rugged bike. It looks good. I call her Red Shamrock. That's what I call her. It's a Carrera Vengeance. Halford's own make. I call her Red Shamrock. It's nicely built, and it's tough, and it's rugged. Now, just going back to what I said about the gears, I rode 32 miles the other day, and the first 9 miles I didn't even engage the motor because it was flat, and those 8 gears did enough for me as a perfectly good mountain bike. It's just a nice, even, cool, chilled out ride. It's a cruiser. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's a cruiser, even without the motor. And this is the great thing. Okay, so you're riding. Typically, no motor, you ride home and you're like, oh, that was a nice ride. Hey, with this, you ride. I'm feeling fatigued. Then I put on the motor and I get a little bit of assistance. And I tend to just put it into, I tend just to put it in the standard. And then just off I go, and it just takes the load off, and I just sit back and I cruise and I go, oh man, that's nice. I'm still pedaling, but I'm not putting much power in at all. It's nice. It gives you that option, okay? It gives you, I think that's a good word to use. It gives you options. You can go further, you can do more, and you can enjoy your ride more because it's going to take the load off. And then if you feel like you want a little bit more exercise, you can just take the motor off, or you can go down to eco mode and just you man manage it, woman manage it, both. Yep, okay. You manage it so you can figure out how much you need to put in personally to you, concerning your fitness, your weight, how much battery there is there. It's cool. That's what I like about it. I like the fact that you're constantly kind of reviewing it. And one thing that I really like doing, I went for a ride a few nights ago, and I did about 20 miles. And I hadn't really engaged the motor that much, just to get me up some hills. And then I realised I had like so much battery left, so I just put it into high, and just the rest of the ride coming home, I just man, that was that was fun. That's the other thing about it, because it is so heavy, and the motor's so heavy and the battery's so heavy. When you do go down hills, the momentum is so much because you're heavy. I hit 33 miles an hour just going down a hill, which doesn't seem much, you car drivers, but when you're on a bike, it's pretty hairy, man. It's pretty hairy. And that's the other thing I was going to say. Not only does it give you options, it's just fun. It's kind of everything you dreamed of when you was a kid, and you would say to yourself, you're knackered, and you're riding along with your mates, oh God, can you imagine if we just could hit a button and you would just take it off a little bit, and then you can get, you can just replenish and then turn it off, and off you go again. Well, that's what that is. It does feel like we're living in the future almost. So this is a 250 watt motor, right? You can go 500 and you can go further. This is perfect for me. I really enjoy this bike, sincerely. I love this bike. Yeah, I love this bike, sincerely. I do. It's awesome, and I've already had some great adventures on it. And I'm looking forward to doing the whole metal detecting thing with it as well, when everything just chills out a little bit concerning the pandemic. It's been very, very fun so far. Maybe a bit of a novelty in the first instance, but I must have done about 200 miles on it already, and I can't see that stopping anytime soon. So there you go, my friends, the Carrera Vengeance E-Spec. Before I go, I just want to come back to the point that I made right at the beginning of the video, that being that I see this as an investment. It's an investment into your health, and therefore your mental health. It's an investment into the environment, and it's an investment into your wallets, because you're going to be driving your car a lot less with an e-bike. And that is why, in a nutshell, I thoroughly recommend them, other than them being stupidly fun.